Hello everyone, welcome to SwitchUp. My name is Glen, and today we have what could potentially become a new series for the channel. Now, as you may well know if you've been around the channel for a while, Mark and I were inspired by video game magazines of old. Magazines such as Games Master, Official Nintendo Magazine, and my personal favourite, which was Super Play. Now, one of the things I liked most about those magazines back in the day was the section towards the back that had a list of all of the games scored by the magazine thus far, giving you an idea of which edition you'd find the score in, and just a brief synopsis of the game. What we're going to do is a monthly roundup of the top 10 scores from our reviews for each month. So this will be for last month, September. We reviewed 19 games in September between us, so this is a list of the top 10 scores. Coming in at number 10 then was The Creature in the Well, which was reviewed by a good friend of the channel, Chicken Perm. This game fuses hack and slash action with pinball mechanics and wraps it up in quite delightful art style, quite reminiscent of pop art, people like Andy Warhol or Roy Lichtenstein. Whilst an enjoyable romp, it was let down slightly by the length of the game, which is quite short for the money that you are paying, but if it ever turns up on sale, it's certainly one worth considering, hence the score of 83%. The 9th best score for last month went to Castle Crashers, a game that I reviewed myself. Now, Castle Crashers originated on Xbox Live, and this is the HD remastered version. It's classic beat 'em up action with up to 4 players either locally or online, and it has a couple of minigames thrown in for good measure as well. Some of its gameplay mechanics just made you feel that maybe it was designed with multiplayer exclusively in mind, which made single player a little less enjoyable, but still an absolutely fantastic game to this day, and it scored 84%. Coming in at number 8 in September was Sniper Elite 3 Ultimate Edition, reviewed by Mark. Now, this is the second of the Sniper Elite series to release on the Nintendo Switch, and this one improved over its predecessor in quite a few ways. Mark really enjoyed the open layout of the levels, the performance which was top notch, and the online co-op which we played together, and it is a great deal of fun, and I'm sure it will make a co-op list of ours in the future at some point. Slight negatives were the high price and the fact that perhaps the writing didn't quite match the standard of the gameplay. But all in all, a cracking game, and it scored 85%. Coming in at number 7, another game reviewed by Mark, and this was Divinity Original Sin 2. Now, Mark absolutely adored this RPG. I know it was one that was quite highly anticipated by a number of people. He loved the gameplay mechanics, the writing behind it, and the absolutely glorious soundtrack, to name but a few. What let this one down, unfortunately, was performance, which had some stutter in places and a handheld mode that was incredibly blurry. Now, I know Mark did say in his review, should these things be patched, this game would easily have scored in the 90s, but as it stands at the minute, it scored 85%. Game number 6 for the month of September was Torchlight 2, another game I know was highly anticipated when it came to the Switch. Now, I reviewed this one, and it's a classic dungeon crawling ARPG which translated fantastically well to the Switch, in my opinion. I felt they did a good job of transferring PC controls onto a console, although some people in the comments said they found it difficult that you couldn't customise this, which is fair enough. And the whole looting mechanic just works fantastically well on a handheld console, constantly having you want to do one more dungeon, one more run, etc. It's priced very well, and is quite a small download as well, to be fair, with the major negative being that there's no couch co-op. You have to play via LAN, which is unfortunate, but all in all, Torchlight 2 scored 86%. Coming in at number 5, another game reviewed by me, and this was the Star Wars Pinball Collection. Now I'm a huge pinball fan, especially in video game form, and although not the biggest Star Wars fan in the world, I still found this immensely playable. You have 19 tables to choose from, taking inspiration from a mixture of films, particular scenes or characters from the franchise, and it does a great job of mixing Zen's quite zany at times tables with very realistic pinball physics, and runs at 60 frames per second. This is the first Zen pinball game to get a physical release on the Switch, at least anyway, and you can pick it up physically for relatively cheap, going for about £20 here in the UK. This was a very pleasant surprise, and it scored 88%. Coming in at number 4 was Grid Autosport, which Mark had a great time with for his review, highlighting the number of gameplay modes, which is pretty impressive to be fair, the fantastic performance, and those absolutely stunning graphics as well, of course. Whilst it's not quite a simulation game, it's probably the closest we've got to one on the Switch as it stands at the minute, and is way up there as one of the best racers on the Nintendo Switch, with the only real downside at the minute being that there's no online multiplayer, although I believe this is coming via a patch, and you could argue that it should have a physical release as well. I know I'd certainly pick it up if it did. Overall though, this game scored 88%. The next game then was the Spyro Reignited Trilogy, again reviewed by Mark. This has the first 3 Spyro games painstakingly remastered with beautiful graphics, all in one collection for a decent price. It keeps all of the charm of the original 3 games, whilst bringing it up to speed for today's standards. There were some frame rate drops in handheld mode, which was unfortunate, and probably the biggest negative if you are a physical collector is that you don't get all 3 games on the cartridge, having to download 2 of them via the Eshop, which as a physical collector myself is a practice that really does bug me, I have to say. All being said though, this is a fantastic game and it scored 89%. The number 2 spot for the month was taken by River City Girls, a game that I reviewed and absolutely adored. Now I'm a huge beat 'em up fan, I think I've said that a couple of times on the channel already. One of my favourites is River City Ransom, just because I loved the non-linear style and the very slight, let's be fair, RPG elements that it does weave into its gameplay. Now this new game takes all of those core elements and absolutely runs with them, weaving them into a fantastic new game with a lovely hand-drawn art style, which is just as much fun in single or multiplayer. The game is quite expensive, I suppose you could argue, for a beat 'em up, and that would be the major negative. It does have a physical release, but it's either via limited run games or Play Asia. It doesn't have a standard release, which is unfortunate. But all in all, I love this game and it got 90%. Finally then, creeping in at first place like the sneaky little bird it is, and it was the Untitled Goose game. Now this game is just so charmingly bizarre. You take on the role of a goose who has to stealth his way around a farm, torturing a farmer basically, completing objectives as you go. It has a delightful but very simple art style, and a premise that just has so much whimsy about it, you can't help but love it. You could argue it is quite short for the money you're paying, although it does seem to be one of those games that you could just turn on every so often and just have a bit of fun with, just walk around and cause a bit of mayhem. And it got the highest score of any game for last month with 91%. So there we have it, that's the 10 highest scoring games on SwitchUp for the month of September. Some great games didn't make the list actually, games like Blasphemous, Darksiders 2 and Northgard, and I will put links to the 10 reviews listed here in the comments section below if you want to have a look at any of these games in more detail. Please do let us know if this is something you'd like to become a regular series. I think it could be quite useful just as a catch up of what games have come out this month and how they got on, and again it's just a nice little nod back to those video game magazines of old, which sadly don't really exist anymore for the most part. Anyway, a quick thank you as always to our Patreons for your continued support, and to each and every one of you for watching our videos. Take care, and until next time, happy gaming.